Before the echoes of Renaissance grandeur, there was a world veiled in shadow and strife, the Middle Ages. 1,000 years spun from the quiet crumble of Rome to the fiery Renaissance dawn. Picture the world falling silent as Roman roads cracked and cities whispered their last breaths. It is here our journey begins. Warlords rose from the rubble while within northern seas, the Vikings carved chaos with dragon-proud ships. Castles rose, cathedrals soared, and faith clashed, bodies strewn in holy wars. Disease and dissent beat at the tapestry's threads, unravelling an age steeped in iron and blood. Join us as we traverse this aged landscape. The shadows beckon. And so let us embark on our journey into a time when the Roman Empire, once a beacon of might and civilization, began to falter, not with a grand explosion, but as a whisper carried by the wind. Picture the bustling markets of ancient Rome, now eerily silent, the once vibrant streets fading into desolation as the infrastructure crumbled. Roads, aqueducts and forums, the veins of Rome's might, fell into neglected disrepair. The emperor's command no longer echoed with the authority it once wielded, as life shifted into survival amidst the remnants of a fallen grandeur. Power drifted from the emperor's hands into those of warlords, bishops, and regional chieftains who took root in the fertile soil of this uncertainty, each growing stronger as central authority waned. It was in this chaotic transition that a new age emerged, one filled with peril and promise, where legends awaited their birth. The empire's decline was not sudden but a slow, erosive decay. Internal strife, marked by political infighting and rampant corruption, gnawed away at its core. Emperors came and went with alarming frequency, each more ineffective than the last. Rome's boundaries strained under military pressures that teetered on collapse. Externally, barbarian tribes circled the weakening Rome, like vultures sensing an injured quarry. The sack of Rome in 410 AD by the Visigoths was more than an attack. It was a stark symbol of the mighty empire's vulnerability. As Roman structures faded, citizens were deprived of the security they once knew. The elaborate bathhouses, towering aqueducts and bustling marketplaces became mere shadows of the past. Trade networks dissolved, leaving a populace grappling with a stark decline in living standards, transitioning from the luxuries of Roman life to subsistence survival. The concept of Rome transformed from reality into myth, setting Western Europe on a new path of fragmented kingdoms and fledgling city-states. Yet, even as Rome's political structure crumbled, the dream of Rome lingered on, casting its long shadow over the medieval psyche. It remained a model of governance and civilization. Ambitious rulers like Charlemagne harboured visions of restoring Rome's power, seeing themselves as heirs to a legacy not yet ready to fade. Roman military strategies, architectural marvels, and legal principles were cherished. Heirlooms passed through ages. Cities still bore imprints of Roman might, and emerging monarchs borrowed from this legacy, shaping their nascent realms. The idea of Rome legitimized their power, linking them to a glory that had not completely died. It was the allure of this dream that prompted medieval endeavours to unify or dominate fragments of Europe, giving rise to the Holy Roman Empire and fueling architectural achievements that reach for ancient splendour. As the meticulously constructed Roman roads descended into ruin, they became symbols of a fractured empire. These thoroughfares once pulsed with the life of soldiers and traders, but now lay overgrown, abandoned by neglect. This decay paralleled the empire's waning power, but also carved new paths of opportunity. With trade routes shifting, fortified villages became centres of power and artisans revived forgotten crafts. Here, amidst the ruin, lay a spirit of innovation, as communities had to adapt to survive. The roads, now charging with the potential, linked new civilizations to a common past while propelling them toward an uncharted future. Out of necessity and survival, they carried with them the wisdom of an ancient world, underpinning a new era of medieval creativity and resilience. In the empire's fading light, warlords, masters of both battle and strategy, emerged. As Roman legions retreated, these men of ambition filled the void, their rule both harsh and essential. They carved dominions from the wreckage, their power built on the strength of arms and alliances. These were the new stewards of authority, often noble by blood or elevated through might, navigating power's precarious dance against chaos. Though their methods were often brutal, they provided a semblance of stability to their subjects in a tumultuous age. Amidst the secular power vacuum, the church emerged as a formidable constant, its bishops wielding dual roles, spiritual sheriffs amid a landscape of unpredictability. Bishops mediated conflicts, advised chieftains and maintained continuity where Rome had failed, their influence extending beyond the altar. The church's infrastructure outlasted many secular barriers, casting a stabilising net across a fractured Europe. Their presence bridged past traditions with future aspirations, infusing the medieval tapestry with threads of direction and divine purpose. While Europe forged ahead, the echoes of pagan traditions lingered, intertwined within the nascent Christian domain. Pagan customs morphed alongside Christian practices, creating a rich cultural tapestry. Festivals that celebrated ancient gods were reimagined through Christian lenses, merging the spiritual journeys of old and new. This fusion of traditions reflected a broader cultural resilience, wherein Europe's ancient roots refused to wither away beneath Rome's shadow. In the ruins of the fallen empire lay the seeds of a renewed civilization. Languages evolved, and distinct cultures arose within the decaying walls. As Europe pushed into the medieval era, it was not survival alone that beckoned, but a flourishing journey of discovery. From monastic learning to artisanal craftsmanship, the fall inspired new wonders, laying the groundwork for an identity that would endure and redefine the modern world. The decline of Rome was not merely an end, it was a transformation, providing a canvas for exploration and renewal, reshaping Europe's trajectory and securing its enduring legacy. In the echoes of Rome's fall, a chaotic tapestry of ambitions played out across Europe. Among the debris of empires, a mosaic of tribes scrambled for power, chief among them the Franks. Born from the misty banks of the Lower Rhine, these Germanic tribes seized the waning authority of Romans like wolves upon a vulnerable prey. By the late 5th century, under the shrewd and merciless Clovis I, the Franks began etching the lines of what would become modern France out of Roman Gaul's ashes. Clovis's legacy was double-edged. His martial prowess was rivaled only by his political cunning. Through alliances that pocketed both blood and trust, he sculpted a nascent kingdom from decay, birthing the dynasty known as the Merovingians, a line claiming divine veins in their blood. This kingdom of warriors found a new cadence, one sung not just by the clash of swords, but in the hymns of churches, as Clovis, swayed by his wife Clotilde, and perhaps a miracle at Tolbiac, converted to Christianity, wrapping his kingdom in the folds of the Roman Church's influence. With one faith replacing another, the Franks exchanged their god's chaos for Christianity's unity, a maneuver bolstering both divine and political legitimacy, binding their realm into a quilt of swords and crosses, pivotal in shaping medieval Europe's identity. Meanwhile, the Visigoths were carving their legacy deeper into Hispania's soil. The fall of Rome had left them initially as federates before they rose to dominance across the Iberian Peninsula. Held together by conquest and conflict between their Arian Christianity and the Nicene mainstream, the Visigothic kingdom struggled under theological discord, a tension between rulers and Roman Catholic subjects, reminiscent of a bridge swaying in a tempest. This kingdom was an intricate dance of Roman law and Gothic traditions, where power was navigated through synods and councils, a delicate balance of diplomacy amid hovering swords. Their drama culminated when King Recaredfar embraced Catholicism at the Third Council of Toledo in 589 AD, sealing a pact that merged Gothic and Roman paths, calming discord and ushering in a period of uneasy peace until the Umayyad Caliphate's waves shattered their facade. Then, from among the post-Roman ruins, the Lombards emerged as the new fierce stars, migrating warriors who swept across Europe with a brute ambition. By the late 6th century, under King Alboin, they claimed northern Italy, a potent force amid the vacillating interests of Byzantines and rival tribes. Within their helm-clad ranks, the old world clashed with new realities, the Lombards straddling warrior ways and the governance necessity taught by Roman predecessors. The Edict of Rothari emerged, a testament to their legal acumen, a blend of Roman precision and Germanic soul. Though resistance to Catholicism initially defined them, they grew to appreciate the papacy's sway. Conquered by Charlemagne in 774, their legacy was absorbed yet remained, a testament to the ebb and flow of tribal tides reshaping over history's stones. Yet none stood as tall in the halls of medieval law as Charlemagne. His reign was a beacon of ambition, stretching from today's France to Germany and yonder. A craftsman of both cultural revival and expansion, he forged a tapestry of learning and dominion traditionally Roman. His crowning by Pope Leo III on Christmas Day, 800 AD, intertwined kingship with divine stewardship, casting him as Christendom's sentinel. His empire felt the pulse of a Carolingian Renaissance, a revival in letters, as Latin literacy sparked a legacy that resonated through the church's veins to the corners of his empire, hanging like the clang of a sword in the halls of European memory. Yet with his passing, the empire that thrived quickly fragmented into feudal fractals, but his vision wove itself into the medieval zeitgeist, echoing in ideas of unity and governance. Throughout Europe's morphing landscape, faiths clashed. Christianity's threads sought to weave over Europe's pagan hues, sowing discord with needles of cultural transformation. While some kings viewed conversion as shrewd strategy, aligning with Rome's moral and political might, pagan rituals persisted like veins of vibrant embroidery beneath monolithic Christian tapestries. Thus, in this transition, conversion was a tremulous symphony between Earth's seasonal festivals and heaven's singular cross. While battle lines etched Europe's maps, diplomacy shaped its veins behind the curtains of royal courts. These courts thrummed with whispers of civility, where alliances were penned as often as battle plans. Latin, the lingua franca, danced alongside local dialects, weaving a tapestry of discourse that watched over swords. Here in these courts, the politics of matrimony and merchants were essential rhythms in a world shaped by shifting power and allegiance. Amidst this chaos, women stood defiant, Though often shadowed by patriarchal spires, they held subtle power, shaping kingdoms. Queens like Eleanor of Aquitaine wielded influence, her strategizing rivaling the war general's cunning, maneuvering through political webs. In rare flashes, women led armies or shield maidens, their stories cutting through historical narrative like whispered defiance. In the shimmer of these legends and realities, the medieval world found itself an evolving, fragmented tapestry, each kingdom adding colour, texture, forging the very essence of Europe itself, a forgotten whisper that resounds today in both unity and division. In the icy wilderness of Scandinavia, the Vikings emerged as seafaring sea wolves from regions now called Norway, Sweden and Denmark. These resilient people navigated vast waters with their longships, driven by myths of gods and giants and the need for new territories. When they set their gaze beyond the horizon, a legendary era began in 793 AD with a surprise attack on Lindisfarne Abbey. This brutal raid on the peaceful Northumbrian monastery shocked Europe, illuminating the coastal nights with a sense of dread and setting the stage for a series of Viking incursions into Britain, Ireland, and beyond. The Viking longship stood at the heart of their early successes, celebrated for its flexible yet sturdy design that allowed it to sail oceans and rivers alike. Crafted with resilience, these ships bore intricate carvings of dragons to ward off sea monsters, a flair of fear and artistry in equal measure. The seasons guided their toil, offering structure and meaning, with harvest festivals punctuating the year's monotony. Yet beneath this agricultural cadence lay a duality, the idyllic pastoral life shadowed by the weight of feudal obligations and subsistence living. Amidst this, the nobles in their castles pursued strategic alliances and relished pleasures denied to those who tilled their lands, while the sermons of cathedrals whispered humility and divine responsibility. In Finland, the Vikings conducted audacious raids by penetrating European river systems, guided by the waterways of the Seine, Loire, and Volga. The audacity of these ventures stretched all the way to Paris in 845 AD, where the legendary Ragnar Lodbrok's fleet laid siege to the city, demanding a ransom that echoed with tales of Norse bravado. Beyond the battles, these rivers became conduits of vibrant trade, linking northern Europe with Byzantium and the Islamic Caliphate. As astute merchants, the Vikings exchanged furs and slaves for silver and spices, intertwining their legacy with the cultures they touched. Settlements like those at Novgorod and Kiev solidified their influence and spread Norse customs along the rivers, leaving lasting imprints on the burgeoning tapestry of Kievan Rus. As the Viking Age unfolded, the promise of Christianity found its way into the hearts of Norse leaders. Initially looters of church treasures, the allure of strategic alliances and power prompted several Viking rulers to adopt the Christian faith. This transformation saw the likes of Harald Bluetooth, of Denmark and Norway's Olaf Tryggvason, leading conversions, entwining their realms with the cultural currents of the wider European landscape. As Viking chiefs became kings, territories solidified into dynasties, nurturing legends such as Canute the Great, whose reign bridged Scandinavia and England into a prolific North Sea empire. The sacking of monasteries, starting with Lindisfarne, stands as a haunting image from this era. Monasteries, perceived as both spiritual havens and treasure troves, were ravaged, their inhabitants witness to what they saw as true sacrilege. Chroniclers like Alcuin of York expressed devastation at the sight of flaming sanctuaries. Yet, the devastation also prompted a strengthening of the church, paving the way for later reforms and using the chaotic backdrop to broaden its temporal power. As conquerors, the Vikings were also settlers. The Danelaw in England speaks to their influence, where Norse and Anglo-Saxon cultures blended into a unique mosaic. In Iceland, untamed landscapes became a new frontier for Norse settlers, who established a society governed by chieftains and assemblies like the Althing, the oldest parliamentary institution still with echoes today. Here, they preserved sagas and eddas, forming a robust literary tradition that captured their adventurous past and gave their oral tales enduring written form. Scandinavia's gaze eventually turned eastward, with the Varangian Swedish Vikings embarking down the Volga and Dnieper, interacting with Byzantine and Slavic cultures. They eventually formed a foundational part of the Rus state, leaving a legacy entwined with Russian history. Centres like Novgorod became vital trading arteries, merging Norse legacies with Slavic customs and generating thriving cultural exchanges. Beyond the shield walls and skirmishes, the Vikings thrived as merchants, with flourishing trade networks that reached from distant Asia into the heart of the Middle East. Settlements evolved from temporary camps to bustling towns. Crafts burgeoned and artisan skills bloomed, bringing permanence to Norse towns like Birka and Dublin, and weaving their influence into the medieval European economy. Storytelling was another hallmark of Norse culture, with skalds etching battles and myths into the collective memory of their people. By the 13th century, these oral traditions found permanence in Icelandic sagas and eddas. Manuscripts like the Prose Edda immortalised Norse mythology, while sagas recounted the legendary deeds of figures like Egil Skallagrimsson, blending drama with historic reality and preserving Norse identity. These traditions have made their indelible mark, resonating through time as treasured insights into a vanished era. The end of Viking raids didn't erase their impact. As cultural architects, they left footprints from France's Normandy to Britain's moors, weaving their stories into the civic and cultural fabric of Europe. The Norse legacy persists not just in linguistic traces or myths, but in a pervasive spirit of exploration and innovation that echoes into the modern world. In the east, amidst the vast, sun-scorched sands of Arabia, a new force awakened, unfurling a narrative of enlightenment and conquest. Born from the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad in the 7th century, Islam swept across continents, becoming an empire that defied the chaos-gripping medieval Europe. While Christendom grappled with crumbling dominions and darkened ages, the Islamic world flourished. Scholars in Baghdad preserved and expanded the knowledge of ancient Greeks, Indians, and Persians, contributing to a golden age of culture and trade. Cities like Damascus, Cairo, and Cordoba emerged as vibrant centres of learning, drawing scholars and merchants whose footsteps echoed through bustling bazaars laden with spices and textiles. This ascendant Islamic world, rooted in faith but reaching for the stars, nurtured advancements in astronomy, medicine, and mathematics, fields that Europe would later rediscover with awe. An empire stretched from Spain to the Indus River, exuding optimism and a thirst for knowledge. Yet, as its borders encroached on the Christian lands, a clash seemed inevitable. By the late 11th century, a call to arms resounded through fragmented Christendom. Pope Urban II's rallying cry for the First Crusade ignited a fire, urging warriors to reclaim the Holy Land, promised absolution for their sins, countless knights and peasants took up the cross, propelled by a fervour that blended faith with ambition and greed. What began as a devout march spiralled into a maelstrom of chaos. Waves of crusaders tore through Jerusalem in 1099, their zeal staining the streets with blood in a massacre even seasoned warriors found shocking. The city, a sacred prize, saw its status transform into a symbol of both hope and horror, offering spiritual glory for some and for others, a desperate defence. As Crusader kingdoms took hold, they found a fierce adversary in Saladin, whose chivalrous retaking of Jerusalem in 1187 exemplified a fleeting return to tolerance amidst the ferocious tumult. Amid the clang of swords, knights adorned with crosses emerged, bound by oaths that merged martial prowess with monastic devotion. The Knights Templar and Hospitallers stood as vanguards, embodying the paradox of peace preached yet steel wielded. The Templars rose into a formidable power, became bankers for kings, and met a dramatic end, accused of heresy and crushed by envy and greed. Meanwhile, the Hospitallers adapted, evolving into what is now the Order of Malta. While war raged, trade and cultural exchanges unfolded alongside it, weaving connection where division reigned. Crusaders returning home carried spices, textiles, and newfound knowledge that slowly enriched Europe. Eastern luxuries intoxicated European courts, planting seeds of curiosity that would eventually blossom into the Renaissance. Coastal cities like Venice and Genoa thrived, transforming into bridges across the Mediterranean, trading not just goods but ideas. Medicine, science, and philosophy traversed these cultural barriers, whispering hints of shared humanity. Yet beneath this commerce was an economy of faith. Pilgrimages surged, driven by belief in relics' divine power. Jerusalem, Santiago de Compostela, and Rome flowed with pilgrims seeking spiritual bounty, engendering routes that became arteries of commerce. Inns and merchants thrived, but authenticity remained questioned, underscoring the irony of salvation intertwined with commerce and fraud. Architecture mirrored the medieval soul, with Christian Gothic cathedrals piercing the heavens, communal hubs of worship and pride. These edifices required generations to complete, resonating with collective devotion and hierarchy. In the Islamic world, mosques like the Great Mosque of Cordoba showcase simplicity and stunning artistry, serving as cultural centres where scholars convened. Both Christian and Muslim sacred architecture reflected rivalry and respect, with passionate dedication shaping the very foundations upon which they stood. Amidst clashes in scripture, the era was also a crucible for thinkers who bridged East and West. Islamic philosophers like Al-Farabi and Avicenna reinvigorated ancient philosophy, igniting sparks in European minds that led to scholastic advancement. Figures like Thomas Aquinas in the West absorbed these ideas, intertwining them with Christian theology. The exchange seeded advances in science and medicine, with luminaries like Alhazen pioneering principles beyond their era's constrictions. By the 13th century, crusading fervour waned, spent by repeated failures and harsh realities. The principles that once stirred, nations faltered, leaving ruins of displaced empires and fragmented communities. Yet the legacy of these conflicts lingered in societies reshaped by distrust and enmity. Crusades had catalysed change not through conquest, but through a complex blend of collision and collaboration. The story of the Cross and Crescent is a tapestry of faith, power, and culture, interwoven with tales of transformation. The era set a course for ideas and commerce to flow more freely, even though suspicion and strife marred those involved. The coexistence of confrontation and collaboration left an indelible mark, a testament to both the civilization's strengths and failings. As the dust of battle settled, echoes of shared humanity persisted, shaping the contours of a future where the lessons and scars of the past would continue to reverberate. In the tapestry of medieval Europe, castles etch their silhouettes against the horizon, robust symbols of power and fortification. These stone giants emerged to lord over the landscape, their walls thick enough to thwart sieges, and strong enough to project the dominance of their feudal lords. More than mere military bastions, castles were vibrant centres of political manoeuvring and daily life. Within these walls, knights readied for battle, nobles navigated the intricacies of court, and servants kept the hearths warm. Castles hummed with life and intrigue, their presence a constant reminder of authority across miles of farmland. Yet beyond their functional role as fortresses, castles became sites of social and cultural exchange. Noble halls hosted feasts where minstrels recited tales of valour, and political alliances were quietly spoken into existence over goblets of mead. These gatherings, though festive, bore potent political weight, their quiet negotiations as fortified as the moats encircling the strongholds. The architecture of castles evolved, adopting concentric designs and intricate curtain walls to stymie the cunning of invaders. Nevertheless, through this transformation, they remain steadfast emblems of the era, their shadow long and significant over the unfolding narrative of time. While castles embodied the brawn of the medieval epoch, cathedrals catered to its soul. Rising skyward from bustling towns, these awe-inspiring structures reached for the heavens physically and spiritually, serving as spiritual refuges, educational centres, and artistic havens. Cathedrals embodied communal devotion, often crafted over generations with the sweat and skill of entire towns. Master masons, the silent architects of such grand dreams, chiselled exquisite statues and frescoes, infusing their works with spiritual gravity. The echo of choirs and the serenity of chanting filled these hallowed spaces, fostering a divine resonance that mirrored the heights of their ceilings. Building a cathedral was an all-encompassing endeavour, with every societal rung lending a hand or coin, from opulent nobles to humble peasants. These projects weren't mere architectural feats. They signified communal unity, rooting towns in a shared purpose. Within their stained glass stories and reverberant naves, cathedrals anchored medieval towns, providing solace, identity, and the assurance of a divine presence in everyday life. They were unique in style, reflecting the regional, architectural nuances, yet their intent was universal: to glorify the celestial and inspire earthly wanderers within. Under the watchful gaze of these stone giants, medieval life unfolded among its townsfolk, a tapestry interwoven with routines dictated by the land and the church. The peasants, the backbone of the feudal system, laboured against the backdrop of nature's rhythm and ecclesiastical calendars. The seasons guided their toil, offering structure and meaning, with harvest festivals punctuating the year's monotony. Yet beneath this agricultural cadence lay a duality: the idyllic pastoral life shadowed by the weight of feudal obligations and subsistence living. Amidst this, the nobles in their castles pursued strategic alliances and relished pleasures denied to those who tilled their lands, while the sermons of cathedrals whispered humility and divine responsibility into the rural air. As towns matured with the medieval age, guilds sprouted within their walls. Collectives of artisans and tradesmen offering order amid the organic chaos of trade. These organisations set standards for craft, ensuring quality and fairness, while nurturing aspiring apprentices into masters. Beyond the craftsmanship, guilds forged social safety nets, laying the groundwork for a burgeoning middle class. Within the throes of trade and cultural exchange, towns became fertile ground for new ideas, where whispers of what would be known as the Renaissance found voice. The pulse of town life offered a marked contrast to rural isolation. Markets thrummed with exotic scents, and dialects mingling in lively bazaars, where social hierarchies dissolved momentarily in the commerce chorus. This urban dynamism heralded shifts unseen, the embers of transformation flickering within the medieval mould. With these shifts came the evolution of law, as rudimentary local customs blossomed into intricate systems, marrying canon and secular mandates. The establishment of common law indicated a stride towards centralised governance. Although justice remained unequal, hands heavy with feudal biases. Yet beyond laws and trade, the medieval mindset clung to the supernatural. Superstitions meshed with daily existence, urging the appeasement of unseen forces. Folklore and faith intertwined, crafting a cultural tapestry where amulets guarded against unseen evils and rituals ensured survival's delicate balance. The church, while central, shared space with ancient pagan remnants, leading to both reverence and witch hunts. In the romance-flushed courts, chivalry emerged, not merely as a knight's code, but as a cultural ethos promoting loyalty and valour under the banner of love. The tradition of courtly love, with its poetic tension between desire and duty, defied marital conventions, transforming fleeting affection into an idealised escape from duty. These concepts painted the medieval world with hues of fantastical romance and courtly honour, underscoring humanity's pursuit of connection amidst routine. Within medicine, the echoes of Galen shaped practices limited by rudimentary knowledge and rich in spiritual belief. Medieval medicine, with its humours and balancing acts, was as much about ritual as remedy, mingling science and spirituality in equal measure. Pilgrimages and potions intertwined, a testament to the medieval quest for understanding, under the shrouded mystery of health. In this world, food, like fortune, vacillated between feast and famine. Lavish banquets for the affluent highlighted social status, while peasants survived on humble crops, their meals dictated by nature's often harsh provision. Yet, as the medieval era waned, castles and cathedrals stood witness not to an end but to a transition. Beneath their weight, society edged toward transformation, nurturing seeds of individualism and inquiry that would light the path to an age of rediscovery. The Middle Ages appeared to be a tapestry of order and hierarchy, yet beneath its intricate patterns lay threads on the verge of unravelling. As societies navigated the 13th and early 14th centuries, ominous changes began to whisper through the air. Climate shifts altered the season's rhythm, disturbing the agrarian cycles as harvests failed more frequently. Famine tore through communities, its gaunt fingers reaching from peasant huts to noble estates, leaving a trail of hungry cries and empty fields. This scarcity set the stage for turbulence, with unease pounding like a drum beneath the surface. Religious and social tensions simmered alongside these challenges. The church, an entity as powerful as it was wealthy, struggled with skepticism and dissent from within. Across Europe, heretical movements grew, challenging the ecclesiastical splendour and calling for a return to spiritual purity. From bustling Florence to distant Bohemia, murmurs of rebellion echoed through the halls of power, unnoticed amidst the clamour of rituals and rites until it was too late. Europe was a tinderbox, with sparks threatening to ignite a blaze of change. Then came the Black Death, advancing with a stealth and devastation that seemed almost otherworldly. In 1347, ships brought not just goods, but chaos onto Sicilian shores. Bubonic plague stretched its dark fingers, sweeping through towns and fields with grim purpose. Grotesque swellings marked its victims, each a silent cry punctuating the air. Villages fell silent under its weight, the absent sounds of life as haunting as the stifled sobs of the dying. As fear spread its tendrils, communities fragmented, each abandonment a tear in the fabric of society. Different reactions to the plague reflected diverse landscapes and mindsets. Some found solace in prayer, clasping their rosaries tighter against divine wrath, while others looked for scapegoats, their blame shifting like shadows between Jews, witches, or perceived heretics. The very foundation of medieval society groaned under these stresses, its unity as tenuous as a thread. Out of desperation, strange rituals and practices bloomed like wildflowers among ruins. Flagellants paraded through towns, their bodies canvases of penance under the whip. This pervasive miasma of fear and devotion stitched death into Europe's collective consciousness, a legacy of scars both physical and spiritual. Amidst such chaos, societal divisions deepened. The plague's scythe thinned the labour force, turning the tables in favour of surviving peasants who suddenly wielded bargaining power. Across kingdoms, the 14th and 15th centuries saw their revolts flare into life, peasants brandishing tools not as harvest instruments, but as symbols of resistance against oppressive taxes and exploitation. The English Peasants' Revolt of 1381 surged forward as a notable tide, led by figures like Wat Tyler and Jack Straw. Voices clamoured for justice, for liberty, against the shackles of serfdom's grim embrace. Though these uprisings met fierce repression, the echoes persisted, whispering truths into the ears of history. The ruling class, suddenly aware of the vast discontent below, faced the uncomfortable humbling of their unchecked power. Age-old hierarchies began to fray. Despite brutal reprisal, peasants hanged, leaders executed, the seeds of transformation took root, challenging the status quo and inspiring whispers of future equality and justice across Europe. In the shadowed corners of revolt and ruin, heresy bared its teeth. As the Church fought to maintain its spiritual monopoly, fervent rebels like the Cathars, Lollards, and Hussites questioned its doctrines and amassed followings. The Inquisition rose in response, brandishing fire and fear as instruments of conformity. Heretics, whether rebellious thinkers or earnest seekers, found themselves consigned to flames, their stories retold as warnings against divergence from the orthodoxy. Yet not even fire could quench the legacy they sparked, a rebellious spirit destined to smoulder into the Reformation. Mysticism flourished amidst this turmoil. Flagellants wandered the streets, their self-flagellation a grotesque display of piety and desperation. Women like Joan of Arc emerged, cloaked in visions and celestial whispers, embodying both hope and existential threat, saints and sorceresses entangled in perception and belief. Meanwhile, society's fabric stretched further as labourers, mindful of their reduced numbers, sought fairer conditions and autonomy. Though change was incremental, and the corridors of power resistant to dilution, serfs and serfs began to glimpse new horizons of opportunity. Nobles balanced tradition's weight against necessity's nudge, fostering a reality where, Amidst crusades for stability and peace, the flares of innovation shone in thoughtful glimmers. Even as darkness stretched its shadowy fingers, irony crept in at the edges. Awareness of medieval life's absurdity flourished, navigated through the sharp quips of jesters and troubadours, who cleverly critiqued the powers weaving fate's tapestry. Laughing in the face of such adversity, bitter or sweet, was the lifeline of endurance. As Europe stumbled forward, scarred but resilient towards the Renaissance, these centuries left undeniable marks on the world. Heresies lit pathways for reformation, while plague-guided crises birthed innovation. Revolts sowed seeds that burgeoned into quests for justice. History echoes those turbulent threads, reassuring us that their weave continues in the fabric of today's cultures. Glancing back, we see not only the spectres of our past, but the energetic pulse of lessons lived and learned, lessons influencing the paths we tread with vigilance and curiosity. If these tales have stirred your curiosity or piqued your intrigue, like the flicker of a forgotten flame, be sure to give us a thumbs up. For more stories from the intriguing underbelly of history, subscribe to Medieval Grime, where we serve the past seasoned salted and ever so cheeky. Thanks for joining us by the fire. Until next time, stay grimy. As dawn broke on the 14th century, Europe stood on the precipice of calamity, where tangled royal bloodlines sowed seeds of discord. In the labyrinth of dynastic claims, England's King Edward III staked his claim to the French crown through his mother, Isabella of France, unravelling an intricate web that would embroil the continent in conflict for over a century. In a world where power was inherited and blood was the currency of rule, succession lines were as complex as they were contested. The relationship between England and France, historically turbulent, dissolved into open hostility, where stakes exceeded mere territories. This was a battle for legitimacy, a fierce race to dictate the fate of nations. France, a mosaic of duchies and counties with diverse customs and loyalties, fractured under the weight of English claims, an empire resembling a dragon with many heads, each pursuing its own dominion. In the shimmer of sunlight on steel, knights appeared as armoured embodiments of medieval warfare. Banners unfurled to the thundering charge of cavalry, heralding the quintessential warriors of their age. The 100 Years' War offered them a stage to demonstrate valiant prowess, yet it also heralded their decline. The Battle of Crusades in 1346 marked this shift as English longbowmen, disciplined and deadly, mowed down cavalry with impunity, signalling the twilight of mounted glory and the dawn of a new combat era. Amidst the cacophony, common soldiers found both purpose and peril. For peasants enlisted under English or French banners, war was often more about survival than patriotism. Vast armies moved like locusts, stripping the land bare, a grim reality impoverishing countless civilians caught in their path. As chivalric ideals clashed with brutal profit, the disparity between noble aspiration and the grimy toil of foot soldiers deepened, resonating with a poignant, sometimes cynical truth. Siege warfare, a cruel theatre of endurance and ingenuity, became widespread across besieged fortresses, where fear hung as thick as the smoke of war. The clash of ambition at Calais and drawn-out desperation at Orleans served as stark reminders of medieval warfare's relentless nature, where victory could hinge on cunning strategies or sheer attrition. The sights and sounds, creaking trebuchets, desperate cries from battlements, and the silent toll of hunger and disease were vivid. These sieges marked the land with scars as enduring as any bloodline feud. Farmlands trampled and villages razed left a patchwork of poverty and despair in their wake. With seasons of war rolling into decades, the countryside bore witness to ruin that outlasted the ambitions that begot it. Yet, amid this desolation, resilience stirred. Farmers tilled war-torn fields, merchants devised new paths to commerce, and life sought to persist despite conflict's persistent shadow. In the charred fields of France, a young girl's vision ignited like a flame. Joan of Arc, a peasant of steadfast faith and determination, emerged as a beacon in France's darkest hour. Her tale, cloaked in mystery and awe, claims heavenly voices, guided her to lift the siege of Orléans and crown King Charles VII. Joan, clad in iron, wielded charisma as sharp as any blade, rejuvenating the spirits of a beleaguered nation. Her capture, trial, and execution at the stake gave rise to a powerful mythos, both revered and reviled. The shadows of politics and religious dogma illustrated how quickly a saviour could become a scapegoat. Burned at Rouen yet immortalised in history, Joan's martyrdom transcended her brutal death, transforming her into a symbol, an enduring legend that spoke of human tenacity and divine mystery intertwined. In the throne rooms of Europe, the dance of diplomacy unfolded under the heavy weight of crowns. Kings and queens wielded marriage as a weapon, alliances forged in bridal shawls, but fragile in hope. Courtly games stretched beyond self-interest into complex webs of deceit and betrayal. Henry V's victory at Agincourt exemplified such threads turning into nooses, with political alliances as mercurial as shifting sand. War's relentless tide left civilians entangled in uncertainty, carving survival amidst danger and instability. Towns fortified against threats, their walls symbolising resistance yet becoming prisons. Sickness spread with the stench of unburied bodies, and mothers wept for husbands and sons lost to conflict. Despite this, a spirit of defiance flickered, fostering culture, song, and resilience. As knights charged across fields, warfare's face irrevocably changed, the 100 Years' War becoming a crucible for innovation. Gunpowder weapons heralded a brutal modernity, cannon fire echoing through history, rendering towering walls obsolete. These advancements reshaped strategies and power dynamics, linking honour, economics, and technology in relentless evolution. War's devastating sweep catalysed change, disrupting socio-economic order while sowing seeds of growth. Populations dwindled, cities crumbled, yet the remnants created fertile growth grounds. A fledgling mercantile class rose, transforming societal hierarchies. Traditions gave way to necessity and innovation. By 1453, when tumultuous skies finally parted, both land and people lay exhausted. English ambitions foundered on France's battered shores, emerging victorious yet changed. Peace marked by treaties stood as fragile as glass, foreshadowing future conflict as ambition wedged within paper agreements. From the conflict emerged new identities. France and England, once feudal fragments, became centralised nations. History etched lessons, valour, sacrifice, folly, into a narrative of human drama, echoing through centuries. What began as a conflict of crown and sword became an enduring tale of complex, resonant humanity. Long after the Western Roman Empire crumbled, the Byzantine Empire stood tall, a beacon of Eastern Christendom. Constantinople, with its golden domes and vibrant mosaics, was not merely a city but a cosmopolitan marvel. The Byzantines, fiercely orthodox and independent, saw themselves as true heirs of Rome, upholding a legacy entwined with both the grandeur of antiquity and the harsh realities of the medieval world. Their elaborate bureaucracy governed an empire straddling tradition and innovation, marked by the sombre chants of Hagia Sophia and the labyrinthine corridors of their political might. Yet beneath the gilded surface, Byzantine life was like a calm sea beneath which lurked turbulent currents of conflict and dissent. Emperors often rose and fell on the fickle tides of military fortune and ambitious administrations. Iconoclast controversies fragmented an empire sworn to faith, turning sacred images into battlegrounds of rebellion and reform. Thus, in the grand theatre of Byzantium, life played out as a paradox of sophisticated diplomacy and sudden warfare, a world caught in the pull between past splendour and future uncertainty. The empire's resilience met its reckoning in 1453, when the Ottomans, led by Sultan Mehmed II, besieged Constantinople. For over a millennium, the city's Theodosian walls had repelled invaders, but Mehmed, the conqueror, melded ancient tactics with the new power of gunpowder, battering these defences with colossal cannons. As Byzantine defenders fought valiantly, fate's inexorable march sealed their city's doom. The fall of Constantinople reshaped the medieval world, heralding the dawn of Ottoman dominance and marking Byzantium's end. With Constantinople transformed into Istanbul, the Ottomans emerged as masters of Eastern Europe and Western Asia. Founded by Osman Thamiantan, the Ottomans drew from diverse influences, blending Turkic warrior ethos with Islamic governance and Byzantine administrative tactics. Istanbul became a vibrant epicenter, attracting scholars, artisans and clerics, while fostering the renowned Ottoman Golden Age under Suleiman the Magnificent. As conquerors, they embraced diversity, allowing religious communities autonomy under the millet system, fostering stability along with cultural and artistic splendour. As the Ottomans rose, Moorish Spain flourished in the Iberian Peninsula, blending Islamic, Christian and Jewish cultures into a luminous tapestry. This synthesis crested in Al-Andalus, where cities like Córdoba emerged as intellectual powerhouses, attracting scholars worldwide. Moorish palaces like the Alhambra exemplified architectural brilliance, while Córdoba became a hub of knowledge and artistry, marrying the legacies of Greek, Roman and Islamic thought. However, this flourishing bastion stood precariously amidst the shifting sands of political power and religious cohabitation. The Reconquista, driven by Christian fervour, unfolded over centuries as Christian kingdoms reclaimed the peninsula. Supported by the Church, this movement was deemed a holy mission, blending Andalusian advancements into its strategies. The fall of Granada in 1492 marked the Moorish era's end, transforming Iberia's socio-political landscape and signalling the rise of religious conformity. Though the Reconquista ended Moorish rule, it set Spain and Portugal on a path toward global exploration, sending ships across seas to weave new stories. Amidst the upheaval, the Umayyad Caliphate in Córdoba offered a stark contrast, fostering a renaissance of intellectual pursuit amid the Dark Ages. Under rulers like Abd ar-Rahman III, Córdoba opened its gates to diverse thinkers, blossoming into a cultural and scholarly enclave. Eminent figures like Maimonides and Averroes flourished, advancing medicine, astronomy, and philosophy. Though nestled amidst frontier tensions, Córdoba proved humanity's boundless capacity for knowledge, achieving harmony through diversity and collaboration. Life under Moorish rule mirrored a complex mosaic through the dhimmi system, granting non-Muslims protected status for attacks. Despite unequal standing, this arrangement facilitated vibrant, multicultural interactions, enabling economic and intellectual contributions. Skilled artisans and scholars from Christian and Jewish communities embellished Moorish society. Yet, restrictions often tinted this coexistence, challenging communities to navigate potential tensions while preserving their heritages. Through it all, cultural exchange persisted between medieval Europe and the Moors, shaping and reshaping European traditions. Beyond rivalry, Europe absorbed transformative knowledge and practices in agriculture, art, and architecture, crafting a potent legacy enriched by Moorish innovation. Translated Arabic texts fueled European intellectual revival, introducing new approaches to mathematics, science, and philosophy. This cross-pollination birthed a shared legacy of growth and creativity, transcending borders and beliefs. Moorish Spain's architectural achievements, from the Alhambra to the Mezquita, imbue the senses with wonder. Intricate stucco work and kaleidoscopic tile designs embody the fusion of function and beauty. The Alhambra's serene courtyards, Cordoba's arches, they stand as timeless emblems of cultural convergence, crafting havens of spirituality amid mundane life. Despite the Reconquista's shadow, Moorish art and thought endured, lingering in Europe's evolving narrative. With the Reconquista's triumph, a unified Catholic Iberia emerged, redefining its future on global horizons. Yet, even amidst religious zeal and reform, the whispers of Moorish influence resonated, threading through evolving landscapes and echoing in the cities and art forms that followed. Despite efforts to forge a homogeneous cultural identity, Iberia's Moorish legacy persists, a testament to complexity within a storied journey, shaped as much by remembering as by the inevitable forgetting of its past. In the dim glow of flickering candlelight, a monumental shift began to course through the veins of Europe. Johannes Gutenberg, a blacksmith with the soul of an inventor, crafted a device that would turn the world on its head: his printing press. Before its clatter and clang-filled workshops, books were the domain of weary scribes, their hands aching from endless methodical transcription. But with movable type, ideas leaped beyond monastery walls, igniting minds far and wide. Ink met parchment, and suddenly, information flowed freely, unsettling a society unaccustomed to such rapid change. While the scent of ink began to permeate the air, whispering promises and warnings alike, the past's spectral grasp remained ever present. Pages offered enlightenment but also fanned the old fears that lingered in the shadows, crafting a fertile yet anxious stage for the Renaissance's dawn. As Gutenberg's press worked its wonders, across the vast Atlantic, sails were catching the wind of ambition and change. Christopher Columbus, seized by a spirit of exploration and backed by a Spain itching for new horizons, dared to redefine the world's boundaries. In 1492, his voyage marked not just the discovery of land, but a shock to medieval conceptions, where the map of existence was well charted and comfortably known. Yet in his discoveries were etched medieval attitudes, a complex blend of awe and ingrained beliefs of superiority. His encounters with new worlds revealed contradictions, a quest advancing new beginnings yet revealing exploitation's shadowy underbelly. Under the vast skies where his ships traced possibilities endless, they also drew lines of continuity between eras. This epoch was one of vibrant creation, a canvas painted by masters whose names echoed through halls and humble homes. Leonardo and Michelangelo, visionaries with brushes dipped in divine inspiration, pushed art beyond dimension and doctrine. Their masterpieces, though monumental, were birthed within the medieval framework of guilds and patrons, even as they stretched toward the unpredictable skies of human potential. Their creations, a dance between loomed religious reverence and individual expression, cast shadows where mortal ambition met celestial aspiration. Yet within these golden exteriors lurked the tenacity of old superstitions. A landscape trembling with promise was also haunted by irrational fears, nowhere more evident than in the frenzied witch hunts that gripped communities in the throes of panic. While society inched toward modernity, it occasionally stumbled backward, surrendering to primal instincts in its mysterious dance with darkness. Ironically, in an age poised on newfound rationality, the cries of witches rose above this progressive hum, a macabre chorus resonating with medieval echoes. Even the polished corridors of cities neared by Renaissance thinkers kept hidden chambers where past cruelties lingered. Torture devices lay enfolded within evolving societies, gruesome relics where justice blurred with brutality. These instruments of torment whispered accounts of humanity's darker impulses, echoes of authority wielded with iron and fear. Despite the rising sun of learning, shadows of medieval justice could not quite be expelled, roots too thick and deep in society's ideals. Alchemy, resilient and enigmatic, tread a curious line between the scientific and the mystical. Amidst the smoke of experiments steeped in sulphurous scents, alchemists chased the fantastical, a bid to turn lead into gold to grasp immortality. Here was tradition mingling with curiosity, a quest that perennially straddled the tangible and the magical. Alchemy embodied humanity's undying thirst to unravel the secrets of existence, a bridge between cloaked rituals of the past and the probing inquiries of a new age. This tension extended into the heavens where the likes of Copernicus and Galileo dared to challenge celestial orthodoxy. The stars, once mere decoration in the tapestry of a divinely ordered universe, beckoned with revelations new and disturbingly incongruent with established doctrine. In this ethereal arena, faith and reason clashed fiercely, revealing a profound struggle over truth's dominion. The confrontation illuminated a society caught between tradition's comforting embrace and the inexorable push toward discovery. On the ground, the feudal bedrock of medieval life began to crack. Emerging economies and bustling towns shifted power from noble to merchant, a profound upheaval that questioned the ancient obligations of vassals and lords. Yet in the countryside, echoes of serfdom persisted, casting shadows that resisted this disruptive tide. Here lay a world in the throes of change, yet stubbornly clasping the familiar threads of feudal society. Legal frameworks too felt this transformative pulse. As commerce expanded, the call for uniform justice rose above the din of customary law. Yet, even in the rise of centralized codes, unmistakable imprints of the past lingered. The endeavor for rationality met old customs with ambivalence, striving yet bound by the undercurrents of medieval perceptions. As this extraordinary era teetered on the fine line between day and night, the landscape was one of transition, marked by startling contrasts. It was a world both shedding and embracing its medieval past. The medieval heart, resilient as ever, continued to pulse alongside newer ideologies, shifting from the dark certainties of old toward a future bright with possibilities. This juxtaposition of past and future crafted a resonant, compelling narrative, a torch to illuminate paths forward, even as echoes of the past lingered like persistent phantoms in the corridors of time. Language, that gossamer thread connecting us to our ancestors, bears the imprints of medieval society. Words like serf and chivalry, birthed from the hierarchical tapestry of the Middle Ages, resonate today, shaping our understanding of duty and class. In a world where manuscripts gleamed with gold leaf, not mere ink, they symbolised authority and continuity. The evolution of English, as Old met Norman, whispers through time, crafting dialects that echo with the grandeur of Latin chants within towering cathedrals, promising celestial rewards amid the ominous threat of eternal damnation. Names are time's fingerprints, remnants from the era of craftsmen and noble lineage. The likes of Smith and Weaver recall craftsmanship's vital role, while the heraldic dee reveals a familial bond to the land, a symbol of honour or ancestral burden. Proverbs slip through generations, parcels of medieval thought offering advice on love and fate, standing as ghostly reminders of life under feudal rule. These words, relics from a vanished world, invite us to gaze into a past filled with lords, vassals, and the relentless tread of history. Feudalism's ghost lingers amid modernity's towering edifices. Once a pyramid of land, loyalty and privilege, its echoes resound in today's property laws. Ownership extends beyond possession into a mosaic of legacy, its legal framework forged in medieval halls. Where power is uneven, landowners today bear resemblance to their predecessors, the medieval lords, with tenants bound by contracts, echoing serfs of old. Political structures mirror these ancient hierarchies. Noble titles, though now ceremonial, still wield subtle influence. Corporate ladders replicate medieval courts, where influence reigned supreme. The bureaucratic machinery owes a nod to the administration that held kingdoms together through chaos. Lobbying and patronage play out medieval court politics, bridging centuries with tangled threads of power. Glimpse a city skyline and find the essence of medieval fortresses reborn. Corporate and government buildings channel ancient keeps, projecting power and security, their stone-like facades a testament to enduring strength. In our homes, heavy curtains and tapestries linger from a time they guarded against winter's bite. Now chosen for style, the hearth, a heart once ablaze, flickers as a symbol of communal life. Gated communities stand as modern moats, securing inhabitants in unswerving imitation of the past's desire for safety and exclusivity. Amid today's scientific enlightenment, medieval superstition clings. The number 13's ominous shadow harks back to numerological mysteries imbued with cosmic significance. Architects sidestep 13th floors, vestiges of a time when magic wove through life. These superstitions whisper tales of mystery, remnants of beliefs mingling magic and faith. Rituals wear contemporary masks but conceal medieval origins. Knocking on wood, a gesture for luck, shadows ancient tree worship. Weddings echo festivity rituals, with brides' veils nodding to medieval symbolism seeking divine favour. Even funerals, sombre processions of black-clad mourners, reflect ancient customs, underscoring how rituals entwine humanity's pragmatism with enduring mysticism. Mythology persists, knitting knights, dragons and quests into our cultural fabric. While dragons haunt fantasy films, they recall medieval imaginations. Legends like King Arthur are windows into chivalry and valour, preserving ideals and sparking modern creativity. These tales bind past and present, traversing time's arc in their carvings of courage and morality. The hero's journey, inspired by medieval sagas, endures as a storytelling staple. Themes of betrayal, adventure and honour found fertile ground in medieval narratives, nurturing our cultural heritage. These stories rekindle the struggles faced by our ancestors, immortalizing their challenges within modern narratives. The apothecaries of old melded alchemy and medicine, weaving tradition into our present remedies. While leech therapy is met with humour, its role in medical history is noteworthy, revealing the interplay of ancient practices and modern treatments. The holistic essence of medieval healing parallels today's approach to integrated medicine, tracing roots to an era when physicians sought balance within bodily humours. This intersection of past knowledge and modern exploration underscores a time of inquiry beyond mere mechanics, challenging contemporary pursuits with questions born from antiquity. Laws today bear the shadow of medieval justice. The jury trial evolved from a system where peers judged based on reputation. Ordeals by fire and water, brutal as they appear, unveil the medieval interplay of divine judgment and human law. These constructs echo in legal symbology and frameworks, bridging eras by illustrating a society's growth from stark, if misguided, origins. Guilds guarded secrets akin to proto-unions, shaping commerce with codes echoed in today's professional ethics. Sumptuary laws whisper through modern dress codes, signifying rank-like in the medieval tapestry of attire constraints. Medieval punishment philosophies linger, shaping conversations about today's penalties. These laws highlight the continuum of authority versus liberty, a dynamic threading through ages. Faith, the crucible of medieval life, held sway over governance and culture. While transformed, its influence endures. Churches, with their architectural grandeur, embody power resonating through religious institutions. Pilgrimages foreshadow spiritual retreats, connecting ancient rites through modern quests for meaning. Medieval spiritual clashes reflect ongoing religious dialogues, showcasing faith's lasting grip on politics and personal pursuits. Medieval inquisitions cast long shadows, but the era's artistic revival illuminates its potential for profound beauty. Ancient chants linger, tracing humanity's fragility and aspirations, linking us to a time where spiritual exploration ignited passions still flickering today.